All right, welcome back, fan stands, to the Week 21 finals between Grixis Control and Jeskai Control. We have Nikolay playing Grixis Control. You're looking to disrupt the opponent until you can land a Phyrexian Obliterator and Obliterate, or Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Meanwhile, Jeskai Control, you know the drill, played by Jonah. You're looking to delay the game for as much as possible till you get Saheeli and a bunch of tokens, or Sarkon the Merciless. Here's game one. All right, Nikolay on your left playing Grixis Control, Jonah on your right playing Jeskai. We have both players looking at 7s right now, but Jonah has mulligan down to 6. And we'll have Nikolay lead us off. And I'm here joined by Eli.
Always great to be here.
Yeah, we've got Badlands as the opening from Nikolay, passing the turn. And Jonah's got a Mox start, a double Mox start, representing all of their colors, Sapphire, Ruby, and Tundra.
Looks like the counterspell in hand is Dovin's Veto, and a matching, or not a matching Mox, actually, the white Mox, the one
Mox
color
Pearl.
of Jonah's that no Mox for. Looks like there's an Obliterator in hand for Nikolay, and the counterspell in hand is a Veto, which does not hit the Obliterator, so... Choosing not to cast a fairy, but instead hold up the Veto.
Yeah, they're the... Yeah, they didn't have quite the right mana to deploy Teferi, bounce a Mox, and still be able to hold up Veto, as they would have needed double white for that. Meanwhile, we've got Nikolay making their land drop with Ifnir Badland or Deadlands, and they're contemplating something. Looks like they have a dark ritual in hand, so maybe going out for the ritual plus Phyrexian Obliterator.
What could be interesting is if Jonah decides to counter the ritual. That's going to be, if that is the line that Nikolay decides to take. I'm very interested in seeing Jonah's response to that, because only at the three mana, or the 3 black mana, so can't hard cast the Obliterator. Do have to commit a little bit more to it.
Yeah, and it looks like Nikolay is just going to pass for now. Probably wait till they have some way to protect their piece before they run it out there.
And we do see the Teferi deployed. Interesting on if we're going to see the Mox bounced, probably. And yeah, it looks like the Sapphire is being bounced, drawing, and then redeploying.
Yeah, now that Jonah has the availability to hold up Veto, they run out the Teferi. Though this will make Nikolay more comfortable with running out the Obliterator. But first, we'll just make sure that Teferi is a non-issue, get them out of there. Maybe represent the fact that, we could be holding up a Supreme Will. Though, likely would have countered Teferi if we could have. So that bluff only goes so far.
Now Nikolay has a choice. Do we want to... The Teferi was removed with very little interaction, very little defenses. Do we try and go for the ritualed out Obliterator, or play it safe and maybe wait till you draw a black source so you don't have to commit that dark ritual?
Another thing that they could be holding out for is a Despise. Maybe not even hoping necessarily to grab something, but just to get that information to know when the coast would be clear. And here, another pass from Jonah. Nikolay's control deck definitely more proactive with the Despise, with the Nicol Bolas, deploying the sorcery threat in Phyrexian Obliterator. Jonah's got much more of the reactive countermeasures. So the longer game is probably going to end up favoring Jonah.
On top of that, some pretty explosive synergies or combos. We do see that Time Vault is in hand for Jonah, so with cards like Saheeli can take multiple turns, and we do see the ritual now. You can sort of see it in Jonah's posture, probably debating, do I counter this? Because if you don't counter this, and the threat is actually, do we have mana for? We do have mana for Dragon God, but it was Obliterator in hand, and he did counter the ritual.
A very heads-up play from Jonah there, using the veto. Thinking, you're debating there, could that have been Nico Bolas, or would that have been an Obliterator? And Jonah goes for, let's hope this is Obliterator.
Which was correct.
Yeah, but turns will continue to be passed. Nikolay under the gun again. Still light on mana. We'll tap the Ifnir Deadlands again. This resolving much more quickly has got to make Nikolay very happy.
Boom. Obliterator. Here to obliterate the battlefield.
Yeah. And a follow-up with a Time Walk.
Follow-up Time Walk.
Essentially giving the Obliterator haste and cantripping while getting your mana back.
Yeah, that is. And there's the first 5, and with some of the obviously in white you can have swords, but the other removal is bolt, which I don't know if any of you guys have ever bolted an Obliterator. It is not a good place to be,
especially if you need to double bolt an Obliterator. But there, another chunk down. 2 more hits from this Obliterator and it's game over.
Another land for Jonah.
And the game has taken quite a different texture. 1 more hit from this Obliterator and it's game over. But Jonah, top decking like a champ. We've got Swords to Plowshares.
Nice.
And Nikolay will get a 5 life compensation.
We do see a lightning bolt in Nikolay's hand, which, when your opponent's at 5, that's and then digging with the Supreme Will, probably to, just another bolt or Obliterator.
At this point, the quench style effect isn't going to get the job done, so might as well. This is like cycling on steroids. And still in the end step will Bolt Face. Now, at this point, we're just looking for Bolt to finish the job. Gemstone Mines isn't it.
This looks like a Factor Fiction. Yep. So, 2 life.
Mind Twist, Bolas, Supreme Will, Foff, and Ifnir Badlands. The suspense. As soon as
a bolt or like, it's I mean, at this point it's kind of like a draw 5, because at this point you're drawing to a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
And so if a lightning bolt shows up, doesn't matter how you split the piles, I'm taking the lightning bolt, and
it'll be game over.
Game over. That was a Interplanar Beacon, which might give some hope back if the game goes a little longer, of gaining enough life so that, you can put the bolt in a pile.
But looks like there's another draw 5 in hand. The Factor Fiction. Will it be real? Nikolay is definitely feeling safe with how quickly that Dark Ritual resolved not too long ago. And the fact that Jonah's just continuously been playing lands means they likely haven't drawn anything else. So, but Nikolay just really making sure that this line is the correct thing to do. He's going to Factor Fiction. And
And there it is. Last card, and that earns a concession from Jonah. And we will be moving on to game 2.
All right, welcome back to game 2 of the Week 21 finals. Nikolay, hot off of winning that game with a lightning bolt, will mean that Jonah will be taking the lead this time. And Nikolay, the one who is mulliganing down to 6 cards this time. So let's see. Jonah starts us off with Volcanic Island. And we've got a Badlands in response. Jonah citing in the Rebs, that's going to be able to counter additional counter spells from Nikolay, as well as Nico Bolas, one of Nikolay's win cons, best win cons in this matchup. And here we've got Demonic Tutor from Nikolay, playing out the Mox this turn instead of last turn, either because they just drew it, or as a way to surprise Jonah with being able to maybe Red Elemental Blast to protect this Demonic Tutor.
Didn't quite see what was tutored up. I think it was a Mind Twist.
Ooh.
Which, you know, is a high commitment play, especially against a deck running as many counter spells, but you only dedicate so many slots to counterspell, and if what you end up doing is you take out other counterspells for Red Blasts, prioritizing efficient on mana counterspells, you can end up in this scenario where your hand's full of Red Blasts and you just get Mind Twisted for like 4.
Mm-hmm. Another great thing about Mind Twist in the matchup is if Jonah ever taps out for a Planeswalker, then Nikolay can severely punish that. Here we've just got Jonah passing the turn.
Do I see double Ritual in Nikolay's hand? That would make the Mind Twist grab make a little bit more sense.
Yep, here's a Mind Twist. Oh, and when they bring out the dice, you know they're going for a big play.
Better have that counterspell.
And here, the fact that Nikolay didn't jam an Obliterator right away means that Jonah knows he doesn't have to counter the Ritual. He has to counter whatever the Ritual brings out.
Ooh, and a veto. Oh, and you can see Nikolay throw his hands up. He probably has a Red Blast in hand for the counterspell. But Dovin's veto cannot be countered.
Oh, yeah, double Rebs.
Ooh, brutal.
Yeah. Saying no to this Foff. Get that out of here. I was trying to have less cards in your hand, not more. Mox Jet the draw, passing the turn. Both players playing quickly. Not many decisions that they needed to make right now. Both very reactive hands.
Yeah. Red Blasting the Supreme Will. And while, you know, that might have looked on paper absolutely like a terrible blowout, I mean, yes, Jonah's in a little bit more of a dominating position, but the game's not over by any stretch of means.
Mm-mm. And the upside to if it had worked is just so supreme. Ooh.
Red Blast coming out in full force in this game.
Mm-hmm. Without any additional resources on the board, countering that Time Walk from Nikolay just denies the draw. And so Jonah is really making sure, like, hey, I don't want you to draw towards any of your answers. At this point, Nikolay could start casting Phyrexian Obliterator, and then Jonah's Red Blasts don't do anything. So any chance that Jonah can deny that Obliterator, they're taking it.
Ooh, I also see a Supreme Will in hand for Jonah, which when your opponent is, you know, missing land drops, not playing Moxes, Supreme Will does become that card where it's kind of both cards in one.
Mm-hmm.
For one. And Counters it?
Yeah, I think we counter here so that we can get the servo
Ah, yes,
as
of
a blocker
course.
to pressure. Yeah, you're paying one of your gemstone mine counters, but might as well use it or lose it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, wow. Good thing that Nikolai had that removal. I think Jonah just drew Time Vault, which, if he had not removed Saheeli, would have been a couple extra turns.
Mm-hmm. Couple extra draws and cantrips. Got 5 mana. Ooh.
Does that commence the end game? Yeah, it looks like commence the end game.
Oh yes, this was 6 mana. Of course. So we're gonna draw 2 cards and amass for as many cards as we have in hand, which will be 3. If near deadlands, pass the turn.
Oh, wow.
The Saheeli.
The Saheeli into Time Vault.
Getting a dude along the ways for our troubles.
Then, yep, copy. Take an extra turn. Drawing Time Walk. Wow, these top decks for Jonah have been awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, each of these, you aren't getting a ton of value because we don't have like a Sarkhan or Teferi in play, but we are slowly clawing back from 0 cards, and being able to get this advantage back is great for us.
So I believe Jonah now has 2 extra turns lined up. One from the Time Walk, one from the copied Time Vault last turn.
Yep.
Although he does have to find something, because Saheeli is now... Oh, and he passes to himself. Looks like not... A little bit of frustration at maybe not finding the pressure.
We've got Interplanar Beacon, and I think we still have another land in hand. But we still effectively cantripped for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
make some chump blockers along the way.
Drawing those lands, well, yes, it's drawing lands and not spells. It is getting those lands off the top of your deck and getting you closer to those things like Sarkhan.
Mm-hmm. Factor Fiction from Nikolai, revealing Elder Spell, Foff, and some lands. At this point, seeing Jonah so far away from winning, I like pressing our own advantage and winning the games ourselves. And to do that, we need to draw more cards.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, Jonah's not in that position where they have a Sarkhan in play and are actively beating down, and so Factor Fiction to draw into more things like Phyrexian Alert. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So in this instance, we're favoring the ability to remove these chump blockers that Jonah has access to. And get that right out here. It does mean that our longer game isn't quite as tied up as we would have wanted it to be.
Oh, he had another Factor Fiction in hand. That explains that decision a little bit. If he already, you know, but not countering the factor.
Yeah, because
he
there's
had
3
mana.
lands to pay.
That shines a little bit more light on that decision. If you already have the late game tied up, what you really want to cut off is, you know, your opponent having these like card selection spells that they're just getting increments of value off each time they cast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that makes that decision look make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, the stack's getting wild. We have Foff over Foff right now.
And how much mana does Jonah have available?
Looks like about 2.
Is it the right colors? I know one of them's a gemstone mine.
I think the other one might also be a mine.
Oh, wow.
So that makes this interesting. That makes this decision much more interesting because the Dovin's Veto looks so premium here.
Yeah.
So here I could see definitely separating the Veto from the Sarkhan, just because you don't want to be the ability for Jonah to counter and then put the beats on themselves.
I think I would put... you really don't want to have your FOF get countered and then have your opponent be able to cast another FOF. So I think I might put Sarkhan with the FOF, and then... because like you said, the Veto is so premium here. It's cutting off 2 or 3 cards, depending on what pile you pick off of your FOF.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very tough decision.
Yeah, if we put Veto with FOF, then we don't have a threat right away, but there's the opportunity to protect any threat that we eventually find. If we put Sarkhan Vol with FOF, then Sarkhan could maybe find more planeswalkers to go with. However, you likely want to have the Sarkhan go out now. And yeah. So we're going to have Nicolay's Factor Fiction resolve now.
Oh, wow. That's an Elder spell, which is the perfect answer to the Sarkhan you just gave.
Mm-hmm. And so here it's, do you want to answer my thing, or do you want to be able to do your own thing?
I guess Nicol Bolas's down tick, its -3, is destroy target creature or planeswalker, which also works as a removal spell for Sarkhan.
And the fact that we have Saheeli gone makes the down tick much more feasible of an option. But here we want to make sure that if Jonah gets access to multiple threats, that we can answer them all at once, rather than Sarkhan making a dragon along the way, which would be able to get rid of
the Nicol Bolas.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting. All the stack interaction in this definitely not mirror, very, very different decks, but you know, this core identity in blue of drawing cards, interacting at instant speed. I mean, this is what control mirrors are about, man.
Yeah.
This is
all about finding those incremental edges and advantages and putting your opponent in tight spots, and Factor Fiction is definitely the card that does that. Both ends.
Now we see Sarkhan. Knowing about the Elder spell, you probably create the dragon, which we see.
Yeah. Here we go, passing of the turn. The ability to FOF for Jonah available. Will come at the cost of 2 lands, but those lands are probably going to go anyway. And you just want velocity at this point to support your Sarkhan and end the game. And here's the Elder spell. Just going to be a 1-for-1. Though not entirely with the dragon available.
Although we do have If Near Deadlands to mitigate it a little bit, slow the clock down.
Mm-hmm. Can't quite see what's in Nicolay's hand, but they're really thinking about what options they should take next. Maybe they're thinking about whether they should use If Near Deadlands or have a FOF in their hand. Though at this point I think we've seen 3 Factor Fictions from the Grixis deck already. Also thinking about whether they should do this now or later.
If it's an instant speed threat or spell that Nikolai is contemplating on could decide to wait until or like past to the end step where Jonah might, go shields down. Oh, but we do see if near dead lands being popped and then followed up by the factor fiction.
Mm-hmm. Plateau, Volk, Island, Mox.
Wow.
So a huge whiff, though this just means that Jonah will be drawing towards gas.
Yeah, this was 4 mana, instant speed, get 5 lands off the top of your deck, which, I mean, at this point in the game, sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Especially after how much mana has been drawn. Is this the 4th FOF?
Might be.
I've heard legends of EOT FOF you lose. And now I'm starting to believe it. I think the legends are true.
I mean, it is certainly something. We have seen almost all of the legal amount of FOFs cast this game, as you can see in a match.
On both sides.
We're getting to the point where if FOFs start getting cast again, we're going to start having to call a judge.
It'll be suspicious.
So we got Narset, Teferi, 2 lands, and a Supreme Will, which is that top card there.
At this point, I'm not sure how many more instant speed cards Nikolai has to cast, so Teferi isn't going to be too much more of a problem. However, the fact that it can uptick and continuously bounce an Obliterator if we've got it is going to be bad news bears. This Narset continues to dig towards Jonah's win cons, so we preferably want to give them as few extra spells with Narset as possible.
Yeah, you definitely separate the Narset and the Supreme Will there. We're at the point in the game where looking at cards is at a premium, and looks like we are going to deploy the Teferi. Let's see if, like I just said, cards are at a premium. Are we going to bounce a Mox just to get another look, or are we going to uptick, on the off chance that there is an Obliterator? But no, we will downtick to draw.
Another mana source. And here we crack in for 2. Boom.
Making progress.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in these games, it's a whole lot of positioning until someone's dying to a 2/2.
The wise words. Wise words of Quentin.
Here, Nikolai not quite sure what he's access to, but they made a big decision last turn. Oh, it looks like they have Time Twister in their hand.
Ooh, that is the question, because you do need to find you do need to find an answer to this 2/2 at some point. But is it worth, letting Jonah have another full crack at another full 7 grip? Most of the time when you cast a wheel, you want to be sure that you are going to be in the advantage state, or at least in a better state than you were before casting it. And I'm not sure that's the case. So.
And here we have Saheeli entering the battlefield. We're getting the Planeswalker party started. And now that the new Saheeli is here, we can start taking our extra turns. So here our Jet becomes a Time Vault for a turn. We go to our next turn. With casting these Moxes, we get more servos. We're upticking to Teferi. We're attacking in for 3. We're going again. This will be our final extra turn. Kraken in for damage. And the battlefield is littered with permanents.
Yes, this is a lot in terms of board state. However, we do see the counterspell in hand for Jonah. And so, met with a Twister, which will get countered.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah just wanting to keep this advanced positioning, and now the Obliterator comes down.
Yeah, and this Obliterator would be amazing, the fact that it gets past this counterspell, but Teferi just bounces it right away. And Jonah not even untapping before they make that decision. And
we're getting to the point where the Obliterator won't be able to force Jonah to sacrifice enough permanents to get rid of the creatures, which is not something you normally think of.
Yeah, and Nikolay realizes this and starts packing it up. Jonah takes game 2 with so much mana.
So much mana.
All right. Here's the finals of our finals between Grixis Control, played by Nikolay, and Jeskai Control, played by Jonah. Nikolay is mulliganing down to 6, and will be taking the play. Looks like they're on a Mox start.
Ooh, a Gataxian Probe start. Oh, do we have mental misstep?
I mean, at this point, it's so flagged. And yes, Jonah does have mental misstep. As well as Narset, a Mox, and a bunch of lands.
There's one more card just off screen.
Mm-hmm. But Nikolay will start with Underground Sea and Mox Ruby. Met with Mox on Nikolay's side. Another C, and passing of the turn. We've got options. We can cast our Supreme Will, but we're going to favor that as an interaction piece rather than digging towards something. Now we've got Foff available. And this Red Blast looking a little awkward against that mental misstep.
Looks like the card just off screen was a Teferi.
And so Teferi will be rebbed.
We're going to mental misstep that.
And we'll go for the Supreme Will to counter Teferi. Let's see, did Jonah draw an answer? And it looks like they did.
Wow.
We're going to reb this.
Another reb.
So Teferi gets through. Not only does this mean that the counter magic is turned off for Nikolay, but Jonah will be able to dig a little bit deeper.
Looks like drawing into a Mox Jet with the Teferi.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, here we're good to resolve something. Might even want to resolve a Foff while we can. And yeah, completely empty-handed. Nikolay decides to do that. We've got Commence the Endgame, Despise, Volcanic Island, Gemstone Mines, and I think another land.
No, it's the Supreme Will. So, Despise holding a little bit more weight when you know that there is a target in the opponent's hand with that Narset. However, Commence the Endgame is more cards.
Mm-hmm. Though it's likely that Jonah's going to cast the Narset next turn, but Nikolay does take the pile with Commence the Endgame.
I guess, actually, with the Despise, you don't have a land drop to give, so you can't actually get the Despise underneath the Narset.
Yeah, and at that point, it's dead anyway.
Or at least not a guaranteed hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, this Commence is only going to draw one card, and that's only if you cast it in the opponent's turn.
Mhm.
However, it will give a body in which to pressure Narset.
Mhm. But Narset's gonna keep going fishing.
Ooh, looks like a Sarkon was found,
I
but
think
not
we, I
chosen.
think we grabbed a Mox Ruby. This will give us the ability to cast
Oh,
Sarkon
Sarkon in
plus
hand.
hold up interaction.
Yeah.
And because we know Nikolay has played some Elder spells in the past, just gonna make a dragon right away. Commence the end game, going to draw a card and make a zombie. That's a 2/2. Kind of dominated by the dragon out, but with the if near dead lands, we can at least offer a trade.
That was another reason to make the dragon over the over getting aggressive, is that you know that you handed the commence the end game, which is an instant speed body, and you don't want to lose your Narset.
Mm. But Nikolay just kind of flooded with mana. Moxen, lands, and dark rituals galore. And here, Nikolay, knowing that they're not in a favorable position, are going to try to trade off.
But yeah, this Sarkon is just gonna absolutely dominate, because this is 8, and you got about. Ooh, wow.
And with Teferi, this is putting Nikolay in check. And not going to be able to have both a removal spell and interaction because of Teferi's static ability.
Ooh, counterspell and Reb in hand means that no draw is gonna get Nikolay out of this.
And Nikolay draws more mana. Jonah showing still had all these.
Yeah.
And Jonah is our week 21 champion with Jeskai control. Congratulations.